Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. Okay. Yay.
What happened?
Okay. Yay. Okay, no, just testing levels. This is the Comic Chronicles, and I am your host, Roddykat, and you can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram.
South Carolina with Columbia down the way.
And sound effect you have heard did come from none other than our man in Brooklyn, one agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody?
Shield let him home for the holidays, so he's out in Chinatown instead of a Shield bunker.
There it is.
This time. You could find this here podcast on your podcast perusal. Excuse me. Blah, blah, blah. You can find this podcast on the Coast of the Podcast Network. That's cspn.us.
2 a day.
You could also find us on your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coast of the Podcast Network SoundCloud page.
Make sure to hit like and subscribe and to hit the notification bell. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, folks, this is going to be the next to the last show of the year for us. We're recording this the day before the day before Christmas. Duh.
Righto.
And we are happily going to start the show off, bringing you the finale, a recap of the finale of Hawkeye series on Disney Plus.
Right, we're going to presume that Roddykat still has not yet watched Spider-Man No Way Home, so we're going to have to table that discussion for just a little while longer, folks.
That's a good presumption.
So we are going to talk about Hawkeye Episode 6. Here's our rundown, bro. So we get to the finale, and the finale really kicks off basically where we leave Episode 5, which is catching up on Eleanor Bishop and her relationship with, and here comes the big bad spoiler bell, just in case you are not yet caught up on Hawkeye episodes, specifically episodes 5 and 6. So here comes the spoiler bell in 3, 2, 1. Spoilers for Hawkeye incoming. So tune ahead for maybe 10, 15 minutes to make sure you miss out on these spoilers. You don't catch any shrapnel from these spoilers. So, as we said before, we're picking up right where Episode 5 left off, and the big reveal in Episode 5, which is that the Kingpin is somehow working with or in collaboration with one Eleanor Bishop, Kate Bishop's mom, and we find out that a lot of this stuff happened or came about as the result of Derek Bishop dying in the Battle of New York as a bystander. And Eleanor Bishop basically finds herself in debt and that debt is owed to none other than Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin of crime.
Mm-hmm.
And the way to pay it off is that Eleanor Bishop has had to work alongside him for all these years. And so through the years, Eleanor's done basically what Wilson Fisk has asked, including but not limited to what happened to Armand Duquesne earlier in this series, as well as some shady stuff that definitely didn't have any connection to one Jack Duquesne, who we know as the swordsman, but is not the swordsman in the MCU as of yet.
Although as we've come to find out later in the episode, he gets some in.
Exactly. So while Eleanor was basically meeting with Fisk under a cloak of secrecy, our latest Black Widow, Yelena Belova, was able to get a recording of the meeting leaked out to Kate Bishop, and basically everything starts to go south for Eleanor Bishop's arrangement with the Kingpin at this point.
Which I guess lends some curiosity as to why she did this. Like, yeah, at the end of their meeting last episode, you know, they met, or at least Kate and Eleanor met. I mean, excuse me, Kate and Yelena met, and they had talked, and some macaroni and cheese, and trying to talk each other out of siding with whatever side they were with, or what they were on. And it didn't seem like at the conclusion of that, and even coming into this, that Yelena was changing her mind about killing Clint. So.
Righto. All right, you want to pick it up from there?
Sure. So, shout out to Sarayu. What's going on, lady? It's been a minute. So yeah. So Yelena's got the goods on the mom. This upsets Kate. Kate's and Clint's trying to basically trying to calm her down, because Kate's like, I gotta go to her, da and the other, and Clint's kind of like, hey, things are bad and this and that other, but you gotta be here for this. And then I think this is when it cuts to Maya, who ends up talking to Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin. Uncle, I guess, is because they never did bring back that up, but we know who that was. And obviously she has now knowledge of the fact that, or at least gets the sense that, it was him that had her dad killed, which again, straight out of comics. And she's talking to him and Kazi, who happens to be there, and apparently just basically says that she's gonna stop what she's been doing, because obviously he found out what she's been running around trying to find Ronan, and she's saying she's gonna stop, and he's like, you know what, the Kingpin's been Kingpin. She says she's gonna stop. She needs a couple of days off, but this pretty much alerts him to knowing that she's turned. So he basically goes to Kazi and turns to Kazi and like, what are we gonna do about this? So Kazi's got to take care of Maya. Which, by the way, Maya was looking pretty good when she let her head out later on, but we're gonna talk about that. Talk about that when we get there.
There's another hairstyle I'd like to talk about again later on in the episode, but we're moving on.
Oh, you talking about Yelena's? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes, that too. So obviously, like that, Fisk is aware, everybody's aware, Maya's aware, on the other side of that, so she kind of goes off, and like, Kazi kind of brings up the whole Eleanor thing, and like I said, basically, not Kazi, Kingpin kind of brings up the Eleanor thing, so he and Kazi have to go take care of all of this, basically. And then we cut back to Clint, who's I think still talking to Kate, and they basically was like, "Hey, some shit's about to go down. We're gonna have to, now that the Kingpin is aware of it, he's gonna react." So, and Kate's like, basically, "Hey, you can go home. This is my mess," and trying to be like what Clint did a couple of episodes ago. And Clint's like, "Nope, you're my partner. Your mess is my mess. We're gonna take care of this. Let's get to work." And I believe, I can't remember if this is where he brings out the fact that it was like the way too dangerous arrows part.
Right.
Yeah. So we come to find out that that Kate finally finds out that not only can Clint get more arrows, but he's making them, which again, comic accurate, because we know he can make some of this as long as he's got the right equipment. So the two kind of make it a whole bunch of trick arrows. To go into the fight. And apparently somewhere in there they get to they talk about the affair that they're going through, which is at Rockefeller Center. They basically say it's a dress affair, and I guess they're somewhere part, but before that happens, they get some backup, as we will find out in a little bit. And then they end up going to this fair. They kind of scope out the holiday party. Clint tries to see what kind of peripheral vision that Kate has by trying to scope out, who's all at the party. That's a threat and an asset. And then we see some familiar folks, the LARPers, placed around the area, and You know, and some dude Kate knew from an old job or whatever the case may be. And Yelena shows up. And Kazi also sets up across the way with a sniper rifle, as he tends to do. Let's see, Kate and Clint go around looking for Kate's mom, who hadn't showed up until like right after Yelena shows up, I guess, or somewhere around about there. They end up, Kate ends up pulling her mom to the side, and then things start popping off. Kazi starts taking shots at Clint, and the LARPers, the responders, try to get everybody out of there, and she starts popping off. Oh, Jack is also there, I believe.
Yes.
With a sword. Now, I don't know why they let him in with a sword. That was a
Well, it's the private holiday party.
I guess so.
With he's with the company, so that's how he gets the sword.
I guess so. So yeah, like I said, things are popping off. Everybody starts scattering. Kate kind of goes to help out Clint, who's trying to divert Kazi away from everybody while people are getting ushered out real fast.
Right.
And
and at this point, Kate spots Yelena and follows her to the elevators because, as Roddykat just mentioned, Clint is moving to try to get a better shot at Kazi, as well as trying to divert the attention away from the partygoers. And basically, Clint, had gotten into an elevator, and Yelena goes to follow, and Kate pursues, and there's just some great witty banter between these two. The chemistry between these two is incredible.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to them being cast together in more things going forward. And Kate does some of the best. Now, some of this stuff is so very, very New York because that's where, there's so many offices with elevators. But I'm sure in other metropolitan areas, other cities, other office buildings that require elevator travel, you have seen people do that insanity, and it drives me nuts. What I'm referring to is, and this is just a mild spoiler, hitting buttons for floors you don't intend to get off on. I thought that was hysterical. I was crying, and a lot of it just comes from, like I said, the connection and the band between Yelena and Kate Bishop. And what's funny is that I have to say that I believe it was the Ringerverse that made a joke about how all the Russian characters in the show have to call Kate Bishop as opposed to Kate.
Right.
So but getting back to the story, Yelena and Kate Bishop have a great a battle through one of the floors of 30 Rockefeller Center. We didn't mention this. The party's at 30 Rockefeller Center.
Yeah, well, I think we did. But yeah, it was just like, but either it's best to
Right. So this is a central location in Manhattan. It's also a big tourist attraction. It's where Saturday Night Live is based, as well as many NBC studios. And we have a great tracking shot of Yelena and Kate fighting across an entire office floor in 30 Rockefeller Center. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's
and they
great.
even get to a point where they're trading compliments to each other, because at one point Yelena takes a hit with, I think, a bolo to her hand, and she says, "Ow, that really hurts."
Yeah, I was like, well, that's for the kick to the stomach.
Right.
You're right.
And one of the best lines in this show is from Kate when she says, "Stop making me like you."
Yeah, no, right. And Yelena's like, "Hey, I can't help it."
Right. And so at that point, Yelena takes a leap outside of the window, but she is anchored onto the floor inside, and so she's abseiling down the building, where Yelena tries to take a shot at Hawkeye, but misses.
Which is also kind of funny because I was like, if Kate really wanted to end this, all she had to do was cut that rope. But I know she didn't want to kill. She wasn't
Right.
trying to.
And something like that would have killed Yelena Belova anyway, because she would have just had a backup thing.
Exactly.
She's wearing a widow. She's got like widow's lines all over her body, right?
Right.
So at this point, Kate decides to do one of the more foolhardy things we've seen her do, which is to try to mimic what Yelena does, but with her own gear, and basically narrowly avoids dying going down the side of 30 Rockefeller Center.
And almost does a superhero landing. Almost.
Well, she's going too fast. That's the point. She's struggling her way down, but she does make it in one piece. And at that point, she sees Trust the Bro truck pull up with tracksuits inside. Right. At this point, though, we get a nice little surprise. And just before I hand this off to Roddykat, I'll leave you with the surprise. All of a sudden, Jack Duquesne comes in and, taking the sword that he's still carrying from when he's inside the party, helps to fight the bros off.
Mm-hmm. So we do get a little bit of swordsman. We don't get the connection to Clint Barton Hawkeye, but hey, we get. You kind of figured that we're going to get a little bit of that in at some point, So yeah, now here's where everything starts to pop off in full, because you see, as Agent 70 said, the Trust the Bro truck, a bunch of tracksuit mafia comes out. We start seeing bunches and bunches of them. Like I told Agent 70 before the show, like you feel like that Agent Smith fight from the Matrix Revolutions or whatever the second movie was. Like just tracksuit mafia starts coming from everywhere.
Yeah, Reloaded. Yeah, man.
Yeah, Reloaded. Yeah. So I'm sitting here like, I was like, where did these jokers come from? They're just like all over the place. But Kate's fighting off a bunch of them. Like the Jack Duquesne comes in. Clint tries to help out a little bit. Tries to help out some because he's still on the 12th floor. But Yelena, I believe this is when Yelena attacks him, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
No, that's later. Yeah. So they're down on the. So he comes down after he gets stuck in a tree, and here is the part that I know Agent said. What?
Hey, you have to go back just a bit. Okay. So at this point, there's a bit with because I'm following the Marvel.
Yeah, I got it up right here.
Right. So you can actually pick it up from That Was Fun, Bro.
Right. So yeah, Clemson. Well, yeah, that's kind of where I was, but yeah, I was a little ahead of it. So yes, right. Oh, right. I forgot about this part. You're right. I should have read this part. So Clint's still in the building. There's some tracksuit mafia in there after him. He has a fight with Kazi. And which didn't last that long, and of course we didn't get that one scene, the one scene from the comic book that we weren't going to see that anyway, because as folks know, Kazi was the clown, or may or may not know from the comic books, Kazi was the clown, but we don't necessarily get that, but we do get the thing. Regardless, they fight for a little bit. Clint wins. Kazi's like, I mean, yeah, Clint after the fight is over is like, you're right, because Kazi was like, yeah, this was fun. And Clint was like, "You're right. This was fun," and just kind of walks off after he knocks him out, or actually knocked him out. He kind of does I guess that's a wrestling move. I can't remember what it is.
It was a suplex thing.
Thank you.
He suplexes him right into the floor.
Right. So after that, more tracksuit come through, chasing Clint through the floor, throughout the rest of the floor. He jumps out the window and into the Rockefeller Center tree.
Oy. And this is where it gets really crazy. Go on.
Yes, and this is where I know, because you mentioned before the show, this is where Agent 70, and I know any New Yorkers worth their salt would have an issue. Kate, in trying to help Clint get down, takes down the tree by a well-placed acid arrow, a couple of well-placed acid arrows. Well, excuse me, an acid arrow plus taking down the support for the tree. The tree falls over with Clint in it
onto the ice rink.
Yes, onto the ice rink. And this is probably my second favorite part outside of the Kate Yelena thing, is when we see both Hawkeyes just taking down tracksuit mafias with arrows left and right, and it was so great. I will probably watch this again, actually, probably later on.
It was a lot of fun. I definitely enjoyed this, because one of the things that Kate says, and it basically reminds us that Hawkeye's probably the bravest of all the Avengers because he's literally a guy with a stick
Right.
and string.
A stick and string, as Kate said earlier. Exactly.
Right. And I was paraphrasing there, but that's essentially why Kate really looks up to Hawkeye, and reminded here that talented archers, obviously with some serious high-tech weaponry, can really do a lot of damage against superior numbers with automatic weapons.
Right. Not enough net arrows though.
Right. So they find lots of ways to help disarm and take down, sometimes with slightly more graphic violence than we're used to seeing in the comics.
Yeah.
Slight.
Yeah.
Slightly, but but ultimately, as Roddykat said, we get a great sequence here where both Hawkeyes, or at least Kate Bishop and Clint Barton at this point, are basically back to back, and they are covering each other while they are taking out tracksuit mafia guys left and right,
including one pretty good, really good scene. Now, well, this part I kind of took not necessarily just a issue with, but it's something that kind of just was like, that's not how we would have done that. But so backing up a second, when they were making the arrows, they basically labeled the arrows, like actual labels. Hawkeye definitely does have a way to label his arrows, from what I know, for what I've seen, but it's pretty much by feel and not by actual labels on the thing. So it was kind of funny to see that happening. But cut to this.
Oh, that was using a label maker,
exactly.
Which was an old school label maker too. Exactly. Not one of the new ones that has like a paper like label on it. This is like the actual like click and punch label maker, which was hysterical. That was a great time.
I was like, that's kind of funny, but at the same time, I'm like, all right, sure, it works. So, but cut back to the scene of the fight, where, like I said, they were kind of fighting with each other. Clint, I think probably right before this, gives like half his trick arrows to her, and then the fight continues. But then, like at the end of this one scene, Kate takes the one arrow from Clint's quiver, and shoots this truck, shoots this Truster Bro truck with a pin particle arrow.
Right. The Truster Bro truck. Hold that thought. The Truster Bro truck is being driven by some tracksuit guys to try to drive onto the Rockefeller Center skating rink and run down the Hawkeyes. Right. And Roddykat will take it from there.
Yeah, like I said, Kate takes the arrow from Clint. It turns out to be the pin particle arrow, shoots the truck, and it turns into a little toy truck. And we come to find out that we're like, well, what happens to it now? Because Kate asks Clint, it's like, I don't know, I gotta ask Scott about that. So we clearly know he's been getting his pin particle from Scott. And then, this part was kind of funny also. An owl just comes in, swoops up the truck, and takes it away. And I was kind of half expecting, because I know sometimes that the pin particles will like wear off or something, but I know not without an introduction of other particles. So I'm pretty sure that that thing's just gone.
They're dead.
Yeah,
that's what's
important. Yeah, they're pretty much dead. So
that owl, funnily enough, that owl was also a companion of Clint while he was up in the Rockefeller Christmas tree. So, it does come full circle with the owl.
That is true. Yeah, it was a little baby, not necessarily a baby owl, but it was a smaller owl, whatever. It was a little arrow on it, and Clint was like, hey, buddy, how you doing? And it's like, whatever. So, yeah, so cut back to Maya. Back at her apartment, she grabs some stuff, she packs a bag, she seemingly leaves and grabs a picture of her dad and Kazi together. And I guess from this, she decides to join the fray. She comes up on a motorcycle and clips a couple of tracksuit mafia and starts to fight with Kazi, but which ends short because I think she basically took the arrow that he had taken to fight her off and then just juke him with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that pretty much was that for Kazi. After them saying basically, she said that she said she wanted to leave the life and wanted to go with her, and Kazi was like, no, it was not about me. I mean, wasn't about you, it was about me. And then they fought, and then that's when the stabbing happened, and he dies, presumably. And this is when Kazi says, leaves, he's coming for you, which is the Kingpin, who finds Eleanor, who was trying to get into her car, rips the door off unnecessarily. But we know the Kingpin is strong and tries to get Eleanor out the car, but Kate comes along, tries to fight off the Kingpin. When I'm like, that's ballsy.
But she doesn't know what she's getting into.
Exactly.
That's the bottom line. She has no idea. The audience knows, and this is a little bit of a sticking point because if you are not familiar with the Netflix Daredevil show, you have no idea who this is. So it's a little tough for someone who has only done MCU stuff to come into this and recognize who the Kingpin is, who the actor is, and what the Kingpin can do. That's just, it's kind of a weird step for the MCU to take because we haven't really been introduced to the Kingpin properly, and we're just sort of catching up with the character on the fly. So for those, let's say kids who are watching this, like kids that grew up with us but weren't maybe old enough to watch the Netflix shows when they were coming out, they're going to be a little bit at a loss, and as well as people who just stuck to the MCU stuff and didn't venture into Netflix land.
Right,
so,
which is still a weird thing to say considering it wasn't that long ago. But yeah, you are right about that because there are some kids coming along who are just kind of pretty much real fresh to this whole thing.
Right, and it's all Disney Plus all the time. Like if it's not on Plus, they won't know about it. Right. So at the end of the day, I'll hand it back to Roddykat to recap this crazy fight between Kate Bishop and the Kingpin. Go ahead.
So like I said, Kate kind of squares off with the Kingpin, and as we said, doesn't really know too much about him, and he kind of inches closer. She shoots him point blank in the chest with an arrow. He's just kind of like, ha. Didn't take that. Now, mind you, didn't take the arrow out the way you would think you would. He just like chops it off, so he still had a piece of it in him. Doesn't matter. It's a Kingpin. He's got layers. And she.
He's like an onion.
Yes, basically.
Very fresh.
Exactly. So I think this is when he pretty much. So he's a Kingpin, so he's really strong. If folks did not know, Kate tries to punch and kick him. He's like, whatever. Throws him to the building, which apparently was a toy store or something.
He doesn't get thrown. That's Eleanor Bishop running into him with the car that she was trying to get away in.
But I thought that is true. Yeah, that does happen. That's right, because they were still on the street. But it does. So yeah, Kate's not having a good time regardless of this, and she kind of gets tossed about regardless of whether it was in the building or not. Like Agent 70 said, Eleanor kind of runs the Kingpin into the building, and the fight can kind of continues there, but not for that long. Kate's still trying to kick and punch him, and he's like just tossing her around. At some point, he ends up grabbing her arrows, breaks them in half, and they're all on the floor, which pretty much sets up how he gets taken down. So continue with this fight until Kate goes back and does the flicking the coin thing trip, with one of his cufflinks, sets off one of the arrows, which sets out all the other ones that are laying on the ground, and basically takes down, not out, but takes down the Kingpin, pretty much knocks him out.
Right, so I'm going to ask Roddykat to pause here just for me to interject and say, I'm going to look at my cufflinks in a very different way from that.
I know, right?
Like, I do favor French cuff shirts and cufflinks. Mm-hmm. I definitely do prefer wearing them, even though sometimes they do get snagged on things when you're, passing by or whatever, especially if you're not wearing your jacket, when you're walking past something. But I will say that I'm going to look at my cufflinks very differently from now on. There's a couple of cufflinks that that you could kind of sometimes naturally feel might be like little thrown weapons, right? Like star-shaped ones, or even the square ones, like the ones that I think that Kate used in this case.
Right.
But Yeah, I'm definitely going to be looking at my cufflinks a little bit differently from now on. Go ahead, take it away.
like, well, how can I use this as a weapon? I was like, okay.
Oh yeah, no, like um, who am I thinking of? Who am I thinking of? There is, I don't know if it's a meme or if it's something on video where um, you'll see someone as they're getting ready to tussle adjust their cufflinks,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, that'll be me just kind of checking, to see what the cufflinks are now on, just in case I need to like do a flick or something.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean,
sure.
obviously there are like James Bond type cufflinks or whatever, just like might got a garrote or something in them. That there's that kind of stuff that could be, that could be the case. But yeah, just naturally as they are, you now have options.
Yes, exactly.
All right, so back to this, so we can go ahead and finish this off. We cut back to, well, after Kate takes down the Kingpin, go checks on her mom. And they talk about things needing to be done, and the cops then come and arrest Eleanor after pretty much at the end of their talk. And it's one of the two detectives that we've seen in actually I think it's the same the detectives that we saw take away Jack previously. So, and it's
Right. I
for
think
the murder of Armand and other stuff.
right. I think it's the officer that was looking to interview Kate Bishop earlier in
Correct.
the series. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a bit of a rough look to see Kate turn in her mom to the authorities. It was just a little bit, like we all understand
Right.
why, but it was still a rough look.
Yeah.
So as we transition back to the action, we have Yelena jumping down, getting down to the ice rink and taking on Clint. So Yelena's mission is still to kill Barton, and they're going back and forth across the skating rink. And it's a fairly evenly pitched battle. They both get the upper hand at some points. Clint is obviously trying to reason with Yelena throughout this and trying to explain how we've gotten to this point and how that and without exactly laying out what happened on Vormir and what the end game mission was. He basically says, he tried and she just got the better of him. At one point, Clint goes down and Yelena pulls her gun, and Clint's back is to her, and his last trick arrow, you know, and I say this in a very analogous way. His last trick is to pull out the whistle that we last heard in Black Widow.
Mm-hmm.
So you absolutely positively needed to have watched Black Widow before this scene.
Right.
Because that is when you recognize what is happening.
Exactly. And this is but this is where it ended up being a heartbreaker at this point. Because obviously Yelena recognizes the whistle and she asks Clint, how does he know about it? And then go ahead and continue.
Right. So at this point, Yelena stops and says, how do you know that, basically? And
how do you know that name?
Right. Yeah. This is not a Martha.
No,
moment.
This is not.
It is not a Martha moment. Not at all.
But I did think about that when she said that. I was like, no, don't turn this into that, please.
No. This is definitely not a Martha moment. What it is, though, is it's a cue to kind of signal that that Clint was a lot closer and his friendship was a lot deeper with Natasha than Yelena, suspected or had information on. And Clint basically says that Natasha talked to him about Yelena all the time, and that Natasha loved her and always wanted her safe, and that's essentially the explanation as to why she did what she did. And basically, Yelena says that Yelena wishes that she could have been able to change Natasha's mind, or Clint should have been able to stop her.
Mm-hmm.
But Clint reminds everybody, including Yelena, that it wouldn't have been of any use. It would not have been of any use because Natasha was better than both of them,
right.
and that she made her choice, and it was her choice to to make that sacrifice and acquire and to help acquire the Soul Stone, which goes unsaid.
Right. He basically just says, your sister, she was going to do what she was going to do regardless.
Right, and she understood that more deeply than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't make sense unless you've seen Black Widow.
Right.
So at that point, they come to a truce, and Yelena helps Clint up and then disappears into the night.
I wanted him to give her a hug.
Yeah, but Yelena's not that hug type.
I know.
Not just having come off this misinformation that she had received about Clint's role. So, we'll see if it develops into something else. But you can pick up from here.
So yeah, so like I just said, she helps Clint get up. She goes her way. You wanted to say something about her hairstyle, by the way.
Oh no, I was gonna mention that at the end.
Okay,
but so you can go on.
Okay, so yeah, so we come to find out that the Kingpin has awake again, having survived Kate's trick arrow assault, basically. He kind of limps away from the toy store and runs into Maya, who has at this point, actually I think she had already, who's let her hair down, actually looking kind of good, by the way, who confronts the Kingpin, and he basically says that he basically says he's happy to see her, but he also knows what's done. He talks about family, and all that stuff. And the last thing we hear of him,
he's an oversized Vin Diesel or Dom Toretto.
Exactly. And the last thing we hear,
that would be funny if they had cast D'Onofrio with his bald head as the father in Fast and the Furious.
That would have been. Yeah, that would have been pretty good. Would have been definitely closer than what they did end up getting, but
Right. What a missed opportunity.
All right, there's always the next one.
Yeah, they still could have made the mother of darker skin so that
exactly.
They would have like a mixed heritage to kind of play off of Dom and Mia being of darker skin. So
yeah, I still think that wouldn't have, but that still wouldn't have played right, because it was like that kid did not look nothing like, but the kid Dom and the other kid was like, that they don't even look nowhere near. But regardless, that's a whole nother thing. We'll talk about it some other show. Back to this. So Maya slowly pulls a gun on the Kingpin as he's talking. And the last thing we hear him say is like, sometimes family doesn't see eye to eye, and then the shot goes up and away from them, and we hear a gunshot. So that could be anything. She could have shot him. She could have shot up in the air. This could be something they'll more than likely bring back up on her Disney Plus show when that happens next year.
Right.
So the Kingpin's probably still alive. We don't know. But even if he did get shot, honestly, and again, this was pulled from the comic book. That whole scene, well, not the whole scene, but basically that last bit was pulled from the comic books directly. So they've been doing a lot with that. So closing this out. Go ahead.
I'll tell you that it's actually from late 90s. Mm-hmm. Daredevil number 15.
Okay.
This is immediately after Kevin Smith's run on Daredevil, and I think this is an issue by David Mack. But it's written by David Mack and drawn by David Ross in 1998. 98! Oh my god!
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
So folks who want to go check out that on if you have that issue, what's that?
No, I was going to say mild spoilers for that, for what might happen if you read that issue.
Exactly. Which, as you heard, well, it was a while ago. So
Right.
But closing this out, we cut back to Clint and Kate in the back of a ambulance. I guess kind of resting while people are moving about first responders and trying to get cleaned up or whatever. But no damage control, sadly. But Clint's talking about tries to do his best to talk about finding someone that just makes you better. And he's getting all sentimental, and then he cuts to Mithy did her thing on these suits. So basically it was like and Kate starts smiling, and they start they kind of lighten up the mood. But Kate knows what he's trying to say and says thank you. And which I guess we didn't mention before that whole ice rink thing happened, and during we saw Kate's suit get revealed by Yelena in the elevator, but then later on during the fight, we find out that Clint had his on underneath. In its comic accuracy is basically the more current version of his suit.
Right. It's a modified version because they definitely covered his arms, and that's a big difference in the MCU, where the only time he's ever really covered his arms was with the Ronin costume. Every other incarnation of Hawkeye has basically had him mostly sleeveless, but with the forearm guard that most archers wear on their off arm for drawing.
With the exception of that one armor suit he had, but that was just like kind of one off during one of his like miniseries. So yeah, because he had some kind of armor. Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about MCU also?
No, I'm talking about in the comics. He did have one that was kind of full, almost full body, because I think he had gotten shot or something, so he wanted some armor, like more lower armor protection on it. But I think that was like during a mini series from like his second or third mini series or something.
Right, like they've definitely had like more full sleeve Hawkeye costumes in the comics. I'm specifically referring though to the MCU, where we've normally seen him wearing just a vest and like maybe some stuff on his wrists, to deal with being an archer. But the bottom line here is that we get kind of like the Al Powell and John McClane and Holly McClane meeting at the end of Die Hard, and then we have Argyle basically taking John McClane and Holly McClane away, where in this case Clint basically takes Kate and Lucky off to the farm.
Yes. So Kate gets to meet the family.
Exactly. So basically, Clint does in fact make it home for Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Christmas Day to be exact. And Lucky, the pizza, aka Pizza Dog, gets his actual comic name said out loud, because they have not been saying it this whole time. So Clint makes it home, gives kids his present, give their presents. They meet Kate. Kate meets everybody and Lucky and Lara, his wife. They meet and they hug, and it's a good time. It's a good it's a good scene. Made it home for Christmas, all that good stuff. But one last piece of business before it ends up going is that Clint tells Kate to go out to the back with her to help him with something.
Oh no, you missed out on the
the watch. Yes, you're right. So, which I don't know. This part was like, okay, we at this point we already figured this out. But Clint and Lara was talking, and while Kate was busy talking with the kids, Clint says, "Hey, here's what I found at a black market auction. It was the watch. Come to find out that presumably from this, what gets said is his wife's watch, and on the back of the watch is a Shield logo with 19 on it. So she must be agent. She must have been Agent 19 when she was under Shield. Like, we already knew she was Shield. Like, it was not hard to figure that part out.
Right. The kicker here though is, in the comic books, Agent 19 is in fact Bobby Morse, aka Mockingbird, her call sign when she was an agent of Shield. So it leaves us all thinking that whether we're trying to all kind of figure out how Agents of Shield fits into any of this, if it does at all. And we know that Kevin Feige is want to, strike Agents of Shield from the record, basically, and we don't know if this is in fact the case here, but that is what is heavily implied.
Right. Like I was kind of bummed about that because knowing what you just said about Bobby's agent number and all that kind of good mess, I'm sitting here like, okay, Now, granted, they could still kind of fudge and say, well, she was a Mockingbird, not the Mockingbird, and that kind of thing. But yeah, the implications here are kind of still out there.
Right. Because at the end of the day, if I got a Rolex from S.H.I.E.L.D. and it said 70 on it, we know what happened. Agent 70 retired.
Exactly. So that being the case.
Go ahead and wrap it up.
Yeah, so basically... Okay, so no, it was good that you brought that up because, like I said, that was part of that when I was like, oh man, I like that. I good to get the confirmation. Well, we still didn't get a confirmation of that, but we got the confirmation of what that watch was, and that was the only other bit of information that we didn't have. But like I said, the implications of it is still whatever it is. So again, cut back to Clint asking Kate to come back out, go outside to help her with something, where he basically takes the Ronin costume, puts it on the barbecue grill, and sets it aflame with Kate striking the match and putting it on there. And part of me was thinking, wait, wouldn't that suit be like flame retardant at the very least? Knowing what he could have potentially come up against, while he was Ronin. But I was like, but it presumably starts to burn, well, it starts to burn. We see it, or at least we see it set aflame thanks to the lighter fluid. But
I mean, even fire retardant things eventually burn. They just have to keep applying that accelerant to it.
Sure.
So,
but given what they did, it doesn't seem like there was enough there to do such a thing.
Right, but enough to probably make it inoperable, make the suit unusable.
Right. So last thing we see is them going back to the house and Kate trying to give herself a name and goes through a whole bunch of terrible names. I feel like one of them at least was something that was out of the comic books, but I can't remember that. But then Clint, the last thing we see is Clint says, well, I have an idea, and cut to the Hawkeye logo.
Mm-hmm.
And that ends the show, with the exception of the mid-credit scene, which was boo.
Well, so in terms of the mid-credit, I got it. I appreciate it, but I was more disappointed after I hit fast forward and found there was no end credits.
Exactly, because I was expecting there to be something like, you mean to tell me we're not getting anything from like Yelena or anything going into Echo series, which we know is coming up. It was like.
Right, and
Yelena going back to Valentina and be like, "Hey, you set me on some bullshit, or you told me some bullshit."
Right, and I want to say that I want to readily blame the pandemic for this and the scheduling, because a lot of the listen, we've gotten literally 9 MCU projects in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
That's a combination of the Disney Plus shows and the theatrical releases. And all of them were thrown into disarray in terms of release order because of the pandemic. So I have a feeling that we probably would have gotten something more concrete in terms of going from the end of what ended up being the end of 2021, the closer to 2021, that we would have gotten more of a connection in a post-credit scene to enhance or increase the interconnectivity going into the new year. But I'm willing to let it pass. I know lots of people got into an uproar on freaking social media saying, "Yo, all we got was I can do this all day and that's whack and blah blah blah." And but the bottom line is I'm more than willing to let that slide because we got such a great episode. I wanted to just move on to like final thoughts on the series, and I have to say that the highlight for me in Phase 4, and one of the highlights for me in the show is Yelena Belova. We've said it before. I've said it before. She could talk. Yeah, she could talk to me in that fake Russian accent all day. Roddykat has started to understand what I'm saying
I've been understood.
Right,
totally
but more so with the increased examples of it, as opposed to just the Black Widow movie.
Right.
right? So there's more of an understanding. Roddykat has gained more of an understanding for how
So
I feel about this.
so here's
And
something funny, but but before you go on with it, did you see the featurette with her?
no,
So there was a featurette. I think it might be in the show notes. I can't remember, or not in the show notes. It might be in the clickbait section. If it's not, it will be later on. But there is a featurette with her um, coming out of this, and it's her talking. Well, it's basically scenes from Hawkeye, and her coming out of it, but it's basically surrounded about her. So you hear her talk. You hear a little bit of Yelena, and then you hear her talking actually, which she has I believe she's Australian. I can't remember.
no, she's British.
She's British. Okay, well, I know she's not from here, so but yeah, so you hear her talking in her accent. And she's still cool, but yeah, her talking in I say that to say that her talking in the Russian accent is as put on as it is still a very 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 good thing.
Right.
A very lovely thing.
And, right. And I give the costuming department and the hair department so much credit because Roddykat mentioned this earlier, and I was willing to put it off until the end, where they give her, and I didn't know what this was called until I heard again. I want to give credit to Van Lathan on the Ringerverse for dropping this, just as an aside, that the hairdo that Yelena is rocking in this episode is a dragon braid.
Mm-hmm.
And I never knew that's what that was called. I had just seen it so rarely, and I had never really given it much thought other than thinking that looks pretty elaborate and pretty cool.
Right.
Right. That must have taken some time to do. So when I saw that, I was like, ooh, that's pretty cool. And she looked badass with it on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's an incredible hairdo to go into battle with.
I mean, yeah, functional. You no loose parts.
Seriously. So listen, I think Haley Steinfeld did a good job of portraying, of doing a version of the Peter Parker story, but with, coming from a vastly different perspective. She actually has a mentor that willingly takes her on despite initial misgivings,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that the Steinfeld casting is a good match to how they want to portray the character.
I would say so. Yeah.
She's self-confident, but still definitely lacking in terms of experience. So,
Right.
and she plays that off to a T.
Right. And if or when they do the Young Avengers, she'll still be young enough to say she can be a young Avenger.
Exactly. And I think that the Hawkeye character, I think a lot of people initially were of the mind that Hawkeye never deserved his own show, but they never gave it much thought as to what Marvel wanted to do with the show.
Right.
Like it's not like Hawkeye, would quote unquote deserve his own show. That's probably what they were thinking. But ultimately, Marvel has a plan, and they executed it, where they introduced multiple characters, brought in a Netflix character, and integrated a Black Widow character right into some of the more street level storytelling that's going to develop in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Mm-hmm. True. Yeah, and another budding anti-hero that like I said, we're going to get a show with Alaka Cox's Echo, who was also at the end of this looking pretty, very pretty, with her hair down. I mean, not saying she wasn't with her hair up, but so.
Right.
I am more curious about what that series is going to be than I was going into this.
Well, it's funny because of the Disney Plus shows that have been announced,
Mm-hmm.
we're familiar with all the characters to varying degrees.
Right.
And I think of the characters that have been announced as having shows, Echo is the one we are least familiar with. Bottom line.
Basically.
Right? We're familiar with Kamala Khan because we followed her story from the jump.
Mm-hmm.
She's had a series, she's been an Avenger, she's been a champion. We've seen her, develop and evolve over several years. Echo was kind of, cast off to the side for many years. Yes, she played Ronin. She took on the Ronin role, and obviously she came on. She was introduced in the late '90s when Daredevil and Marvel Knights was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
like as I said earlier, it was right after the Kevin Smith run, and right when David Mack kind of picked up the reins a little bit, and that was kind of like that first big arc after Kevin Smith left the book. So, I mean, I distinctly remember this. I remember reading that Daredevil and thinking, "Oh, this is cool that they're introducing a character that's similar to Taskmaster or Deathstroke, someone who's mimicking but has different um, physical abilities and physical impairments, as it were."
Mm-hmm.
And
American.
exactly. Oh, I mean, I didn't even process the fact that she was Native American back then. I'll be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I think it means more now when it comes to creating a more diverse cinematic universe, because at that point, listen, if you've been a comic book reader as long as we have, other than a couple of books, most of the books we read, especially on the Marvel side, have been diverse for a while, especially if you came up reading X-Men. So, some books are less diverse than others, but at the end of the day, it's just not something that you would uh, point out necessarily. But in the cinematic universe, it becomes a lot easier to point out when you see who's been highlighted and what roles have been highlighted in the creation of the various movies and cinematic corners of the Marvel universe that have come to pass since X-Men, really.
Right.
Since the first X-Men movie.
Right.
But
and
getting
the first and on that, the first deaf character also, because we haven't had that. Like, the closest we've had was Daredevil, and Daredevil's Netflix series, but he's blind, and that's a different thing. So
right. Again, when it comes to the comics, you're not as attuned to that being something special.
Right.
But obviously, as they're rolling out, and that's what my point was. As they're rolling out these series, they are specifically looking to make a more diverse MCU, because they're not. I just know that Feige is not looking to retread all the X-Men stuff, right? He's not looking. They're looking to try to, and that's why we got an Eternals movie, for better or for worse, this year, right? I know a lot of people want to poop all over, like Triumph, the insult comic dog. You all want to poop all over Eternals, but I thought it was a good. They took a good shot at something different.
Oh, well, then you know what? And you say that, so I need to retract my statement, because technically Echo's the second then, because Makari would be the first.
Right. In terms of chronological introduction, correct.
Right.
So, but getting back to Echo, right? We are all, and this is how it relates. This is the point that I was trying to make in relation to what people thought about the Hawkeye series being announced. Mm-hmm. A lot of people were probably thinking, why Echo? Right now we know, and now we have a better idea of, one, yes, they want to explore the Echo character and create more of a story for her, mm-hmm. and two, it's also another foray into the street level Marvel universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe, that is. Right. And who knows what characters are going to get introduced there or explored there. We're pretty sure that they're going to explore Wilson Fisk there, and we're probably going to see Daredevil there.
Yeah, possibly reintroduced.
Right. That makes all the sense. No, I mean, actual Daredevil, because we've seen Matt Murdock now.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, not to spoil, but, at the end of the day.
Okay.
Right. But we're going to see Daredevil. We're going to see Daredevil in Echo. That's where I think we're going to finally see Daredevil.
Maybe. I mean, there's also still She-Hulk, though. So there's that could also be.
I forget which one's going to come out first. Is She-Hulk going to come out first?
That's the question. I want to say She-Hulk might be first, but I'm not sure, honestly.
So then that's where we'll probably see Daredevil.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that, especially given the characters' connections,
right?
Being that Echo's first appearance was in Daredevil,
right? It would make sense.
Exactly.
So that being said, though, yeah, I was going to go back to what you were saying about the Hawkeye thing real quick, and then we wrap it up. And the only thing I was going to say was that, people were kind of grousing about, like, why does Hawkeye need a show? Some people, there were also other people were like, well, how come he didn't get a movie? Which I know, when upon the announcement of the show, I kind of wondered that at the same time. But also, I could also see, like, well, Black Widow barely got one. At a certain tone, but pretty much all of the original Avengers ended up getting getting their own movie, and Hawkeye didn't. I'm kind of glad that being said, the show is great, so I'm glad it worked out the way it did. One way or the other, I would have liked to see a movie, but you know, I know that's a hard proposition, or a potentially hard proposition for a lot of for some folks to go see. Like, but at the same time, like we got Ant-Man. We got an Ant-Man movie, and people love the shit out of that movie. And you know, and say what you want about Guardians and whatnot. So
we've gotten two Ant-Man
movies and two Guardians movies, and people were like, "Who the hell are these folks?" But you know, but the Ant-Man movie more so because people were doing the same thing for him than they did with Hawkeye. Because it was like, who is this character? Why is this character? And like, he's just, what is he? Who is this?
We can barely get a good Superman movie. We've gotten two Ant-Man movies that people talk about and watch.
About to get a third.
Unbelievable. All right. So anyway. I think we've wrapped our Hawkeye discussion.
Yes, you should watch it. If you've watched any of the MCU movies that have the character in it, and you might want to watch Black Widow at the inside of that also, definitely check out the show. Right. I'm not going to say that you probably need to, but you would want to.
Yeah. We spent a good amount of time on Hawkeye, so we're going to run through our comic books of the week. So we're going to transition over to that. And the first
I didn't pull any of the covers, so this is going to go swimmingly.
Oh, that's good. Well, I mean, we're going to go very quickly. Yeah. So I think we talked about this earlier, and the first book we're going to talk about is
Avengers 51.
All righty. So Avengers 51 is written by Jason Aaron, with art by Juan Frigeri, colors by David Curiel, and letters by VC's Corey Pettit. So we're picking right up where we left off with this kind of tie-in to Avengers Forever #1, and we'll get to that in a second. But I thought that it was a little silly, but at the same time, it's one of the only things that could actually handle full-on blows from Thor, and that being the Destroyer armor makes an appearance in this as a literal punching bag.
Yes.
And, you know, I got that. And at the same time, we're still dealing with some of the drama that has been teased by the Phoenix Force that is causing Thor to question his beliefs and his history. And we have Echo also looking to try to get a better handle on the Phoenix Force. But lo and behold, the Masters of Evil of the Multiverse, or the Multiversal Masters of Evil, I think they're called, have basically come to wreak havoc and take out various and enact their plan. You know, I'm not going to spoil their plan because it has been described to us, I think, in the was it the Free Comic Book Day book?
I believe that's the case. Yes.
Right. So I think it was talked about in the Free Comic Book Day book, and you know, it's laid out in addition in the pages of Avengers Forever. But in this issue, we have one of the first big skirmishes between the Avengers and members of the multiversal, the all new Masters of Evil. They're the Multiversal Masters of Evil. Mm-hmm. Anything to add to that before we go to Avengers Forever?
So I mean, there is a little bit more to it, because we see the Deathlocks come through trying to warn the Avengers, but they're already being attacked in Asgard. There was the whole Phoenix Thor thing, like I said, and Echo, who we just talked about actually, who is has the Phoenix Force now, and that whole thing's coming together. Like, and it's clear that that's going to go back to the 1 million BC, because they kind of alluded to that. All right, so all this whole thing is kind of coming to a thing. But I think there's a couple of things to mention before going into the thing, is that there was a cut in there that was there was a cut in there with Black Panther and Echo talking about Phoenix Echo trying to get used to her powers, which she's trying to do, but also they just so happens to bring up this list of people who can kill the Phoenix, And there's some notable names on there that we know of from comics past. Molecule Man, Owen Reese, the Beyonders, Thor, and Odin are both mentioned here. So you kind of think it was like, well, okay, so is the Phoenix Force going to die at the hands of Thor at some point or something like that? Because I feel like the times in recent history that the Phoenix has come about and Thor being around, that wasn't the case to where there was a match there. It was kind of curious is that list was brought up and that these, and that the fact that this could be the case. But now with Thor's new revelation, I guess anything, that could be the case. But yeah, so going into the other part of this with Avengers Forever #1, which if you want to go ahead and do the creative team.
Absolutely, and then I will hand it off to you. Avengers Forever #1 is also written by Jason Aaron with pencils by Aaron Cooter, inks by Cam Smith, colors by Jason Keefe and Triona Farrell, and letters by VC's Corey Pettit. Take it away, Roddykat.
So here we meet a particular universe. It's not the 616's version of Ant-Man. And it's not Hank Pym. It's not Scott Lang. It is one Tony Stark.
Tony Stank.
Tony Stank basically kind of is because he's so drunk half the time. So
exactly. That's what I was thinking. As soon as I started reading this, I was like, it's Tony Stank.
So, in this, Tony Stark is basically a mixture of, I guess a mixture of early Scott Lang and Dr. Aphra. Now, some of you folks may not know who that is, but Dr. Aphra is basically Indiana Jones of the Star Wars universe.
I was gonna say, definitely Indy.
Yes,
definitely Indy.
And basically is a rogue archaeologist, and plundering tombs, some sort of tomb raider, if you would. But yeah, so that's where we meet this. This is Tony Stark. I can't remember what the Earth number is, but regardless,
818.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So we meet this. We go through with some stuff with him. He find a version of Thor's hammer, which was left from this Earth's. Apparently, this Earth's Avengers had died, but we kind of find out a thing in previous Avengers. I think in Avengers 50, also a little bit about this, but and we also find out what was written on the Mjolnir of this universe. Tony Stark has tried to pick it up. He did, but and then ends up dropping it. So that's going to come into play later. Then we cut to Robert Reyes, Ghost Rider, who just also happens to be on this Earth because he was transported here with, I guess, with the help of a Deathlock. I can't remember what happened. Yeah. So he and Deathlock are trying to save these people on this train, which almost reminded me of Snowpiercer, but not really. Because
there were definite Snowpiercer
vibes or something.
Similarities, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So off this train that was basically taking the people to get burned to death or cremated, and so Robbie saves them with the Deathlock and gets hounded by these war machines, which are, I guess, the ruling which I guess ruled by this person called the Waste Lord, which we come to meet later on in this issue, which looks like Null, I guess. I don't know. Is that supposed to be a symbiote? I'm not really sure. But it looks like kind of is that Waste Lord character that shows up later on? Is that like supposed to be like Null or something? Or a symbiote?
Oh, you mean the multiversal master of evil here.
Right.
So I think it's a combination of the Red Skull and Venom.
Okay. Gotcha. Right, because I think he does call himself the Black Skull. So yeah, so they end up meeting that, and like I said, and then at the end of it, we get to see Tony back at his lair or whatever the case may be, and we see glimpses of some other possibly would-be heroes of this Earth that are around. Right. That looks like a Vision and some other people. We're not going to go through all of that, but basically we get to meet some other people, and I'm sure in the next issue or whatever we will continue that road. So
right, and in the tradition of alternate universe stories, these characters are definite amalgams of other characters that we are very familiar with.
Right.
Just based off of initial viewing, you see maybe a combination of Wonder Man and Colossus.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just what we are going to get when we get these multiversal stories. They're remixes
Right.
of
There's a Moon Knight there.
familiar with. Exactly.
Mm.
We won't get, like Roddykat said, we're not going to get into it, but just to
Yeah.
give every taste of what it is that they can expect here.
Mhm.
As a kind of a stinger here at the very end of the issue, we have characters that we have not really seen outside of the pages of Thor.
Right. I was going to ask you about that.
Specifically, Jason Aaron's run of Thor.
Mhm.
Talking King Thor, the Gore the God Butcher stories, the future Thor stories that were going on during Aaron's run. That is where we last saw these characters. So it is interesting that they would come up here, but at the end of the day, kind of expected because this is an Aaron story and he's pulling in he's basically pulling in all of the Thor stuff and all of the Avengers stuff. He's leaving out all of the X-Men stuff he's worked on, but in terms of stuff that could be brought into play and in that would be able to interplay with each other, he's definitely drawing on some of that Thor storytelling that he had during that run.
Indeed. But yeah, oh yeah, there was a celestial head gun, but we're not gonna talk about that. So that was the thing. We can move on to I don't know which one. I guess.
Well, I was going to say we can just cover the books that you have because you weren't able to read too many this week, and then once we get through the books we have in common, I'll go rapid fire.
Actually, I mean we can kind of do that now because I only got a couple of them. We've read the same stuff.
Oh, okay. So then, no, I mean, but at the end of the day, all we have left is Amazing, and you didn't finish Trial of Magneto, so I'm going to gloss over that. So
right, that's what I'm saying. So you could just go ahead and not just kind of pick in on Amazing.
Okay, all right. So Amazing Spider-Man number 82 is written by Saladin Ahmed, with art by Jorge Fornes and color art by Dan Brown. Lettering is by, I have to scroll up to my notes on this. I was just looking at Roddykat's notes. And lettering is by, of course, our favorite Paisan, VC's Joe Caramagna. So in this issue, we actually get a full catch up on what is going on with our good friend, the real Spider-Man, Peter Parker. And, there is something afoot in the hospital that is going on that is happening to the people in the room that he's been placed in. And it's creepy as hell. We're kind of left to figure out what on earth is going on here. It's very dark. I would say, spoiler alert, kind of demonic. And MJ is the one that comes to Peter Parker's rescue in this issue. And it's definitely a filler issue, but at the same time, you're trying to wonder where this character kind of figured out that Parker was going to be a target.
Or any of this. Well, because if you recall, like this character was taking a bunch of people before he got to Peter. So I think he was probably might have been just taking out that whole floor, maybe. I don't know.
Possibly. Well, it's left unsaid, and that's kind of the tough part about this. Like that's the part where we know this is a filler issue, but at the same time, you kind of wonder if this is ever going to come back at all. Like, are we supposed to recognize this because the character kind of looked like a dire wraith? But I don't know.
Also, kind of looked like there was this old, I think it was a '90s character called the Max, which I believe was not a Marvel character. That this kind of looks like.
No, that was Sam Teeth. Yeah, I mean, but the teeth are different, but I understand. Yeah. With the coloring. But yeah, I mean, I kind of got dire wraith, from the ROM comics, and obviously the dire wraiths have been a presence in the Marvel Comics canon outside of the ROM Space Knight books. So that was the vibe I got off this character. So bottom line though is it definitely felt like a filler issue. We do catch up with the Daughters of the Dragon, and Colleen and Misty are off doing the bidding of the Beyond Corporation. We kind of start to figure out the relationship they have with the Beyond Corporation outside of their, spoiler alert, acknowledged kind of double agent role.
Right.
All right.
To see the lizard.
Exactly. Next up, I'm going to go in order because the only other book that Roddykat read is a little bit further down the list. Black Panther #2. It's written.
Shoot. Sorry.
Black Panther #2 is written by John Ridley, with art by Juan Cabal, colors by Federico Blee, and letters by VC's Joe Sabino. So in this issue, it is that we have some of the logical follow-ups to the very first issue, where we find out that T'Challa had instituted basically a sleeper cell program of Wakandan agents being planted around the world. And it turns out that some people or some kind of force is behind trying to take these sleeper agents out. And that continues in this issue. We have Shuri making an appearance, working on the investigation, trying to figure out how these sleeper agents have been discovered and who may be targeting them and why. And T'Challa, Shuri, and one of the former sleeper agents now is, who is basically looking to get revenge on whomever it is that is killing the sleeper agent, specifically in her case, her former lover, who she was not supposed to have because she was a sleeper agent for Wakanda. But getting back to the story, as I said, there is lots of kind of super Wakandan CSIing. And at the end, we do get a bit of a reveal, but not a reveal of an identity. We do get a confrontation between several of these characters who seem to be hunting the sleeper agents and T'Challa. So we should be getting answers. Listen, it's only the second issue of the series, so don't expect the answers right away. We should be getting some answers soon, though. So stay tuned. This actually played out really well. I think that Ridley is definitely leaning into the characteristic that some writers have given T'Challa of being a person, a king, who has very little to no trust in anybody, and portrays him as the character who literally would have sleeper agents around the world, to exact, whatever stratagem that the Black Panther deems to be necessary to ensure the safety of Wakanda. Next up is Iron Man #15.
So before you go any further, this is what I'm going to remind you of what you asked me to remind you of, because I'm pretty sure everything you have on this list are stuff that I had intent to read.
Right.
So okay.
So
just reminding you.
Keeping it super mild in terms of spoilers. Iron Man #15, written by Christopher Cantwell, with art by Ibrahim Roberson, colors by Frank Darmada, and letters by VC's Joe Caramagna. So this is some kind of weird cosmic stuff that Cantwell is writing. And with the way that this is resolved, it's kind of out there. But at the same time, especially since we are familiar with Solicitations, we know that this is not the last we're going to see of this Iron God persona that Tony has taken on. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely not going to be, there's a couple things in here that I know that I shouldn't speak on because they're spoilers. Black Panther is a little different because at the end of the day, if you read the first issue, you know where it's kind of going without, there's nothing revealed in Black Panther #2, except that we know that there's investigating going on.
Right.
In this issue, though, we actually get something relating to something appearing to be a conclusion to this particular arc. That's why there's a lot more to spoil. So that's why I'm kind of leaving it at that. All right, next up is Kang the Conqueror, #5 of 5. It's written by former guests of the Comic Book Chronicles, Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, with art by Carlos Magno, colors by Espen Grutengern, and letters by our favorite Python, VC's Joe Caramagna. Now, what I told Roddykat about this series and about this issue specifically is that it is a very time travel issue. Very, very time travel issue. This whole series has been obviously about time travel because it centers upon Kang, but this issue in particular is just a very time travel issue. And when you read it, you will see what I mean. Because, think about the time travel, the explanation of pop culture references for time travel in Avengers Endgame when they're talking about when the Hulk is trying to convince the other Avengers about how time travel actually works. And you kind of find yourself vacillating in between the way the Hulk explains it in Endgame and the way everyone else explains it through pop culture references in Endgame. So that's kind of where you find yourself when you're reading this issue. Next up is Moon Knight number 6. It's written by Jed MacKay with art by Alessandro Cappuccio, colors by Rochelle Rosenberg, and letters by VC's Corey Pettit. So in this issue, we have one of the more recent characters introduced into the Moon Knight corner of the Marvel Universe by Jed MacKay, making an appearance and basically saving Mark Spector's bacon. The Zodiac is here. That Zodiac character who we struggled with placing the last time we talked about, the last issue we talked about Moon Knight number 5. We realize now that Zodiac had been kind of reintroduced as a singular character with a new identity and a new power set and purpose in like a miniseries or a one shot, maybe during Dark Reign, and that's something that fell through the cracks in terms of my comic book reading back then. So that accounts for at least my unfamiliarity with it, and probably Roddykat's as well. So we find out that this character is probably going to be a thorn in Mark Spector's side going forward. And that is that for that book. Next up is Ms. Marvel Beyond the Limit number 1. This is number 1 of 5. So welcome back, Kamala Khan, to the world of having your own book, even if it is just a 5-issue limited series. It's written by Samira Ahmed, with art by Andres Genole, colors by Triona Farrell, and letters by VC's Joe Caramagna, our favorite lettering paisan. So in this issue, we find out that Kamala is on a bit of a vacation. She stepped away to Gotham City, aka Chicago, where she's meeting a family member who's part of doing some research, and it is that research that leads to some interesting scientific side effects that may have implications on Kamala Khan, as well as on how she perceives reality. And that's the best and most obfuscating way that I can describe what happened in this issue without spoiling things. But it's also pretty vague. It's the first issue. So we'll see how this picks up over the course of this 5-issue limited series. Next up is Sword number 11. It's written by Al Ewing with art by Jacopo Camagni, colors by Fernando Cifuentes of Proto Bunker Studios, and letters by VC's Ariana Mar. So in this issue, which is, I think, the final issue of Sword, we get some closure, we get some finality on what has been going on and who's ultimately behind what has been plotted up at the peak and on Arakko. And without getting into too much detail, because it would be spoiler heavy, and I know that Roddykat has been reading this. I have not been reading this. I just wanted to see what was going on in this issue, because I know that this is the last issue of Sword, and how I wanted to see how this storyline ended up. So there is some intrigue. We have a nice save by one. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the character's name now. Oh gosh, what is that character's name? Gateway's nephew?
Eden.
Eden.
His name is Manifold. Is his
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it. I couldn't remember his code name. Manifold. Manifold does make a big does play a key role in this issue in terms of making a very big save. But we also have to deal with some, let's say, double and triple crossing here in terms of allegiance. So be prepared to see the roles that people have been portraying, that characters have been portraying, to be not necessarily what their true intent is. And not finally, at least in terms of Marvel, finally, X-Men Trial of Magneto number 5 of 5. This is the last issue of this series, of course, written by Leah Williams with art by Lucas Verneck, colors by Edgar Delgado, and letters by VC's Clayton Cowles. Roddykat is partway through this book, but the big reveals and the big developments do happen later on in the issue. So I am not going to spoil that, but suffice to say that we are still left with a few questions, but we've gotten some resolution to the status of certain characters when it comes to their stature on and their status on Krakoa, as well as a new development when it comes to one of the key aspects of the Krakoan of the emergence of Krakoa and what it means to all of mutantdom. So I'll leave it at that.
So I'm basically just kind of at the end of this, and I think I'm getting the one revelation, revelation that you were talking about. It
Right.
seemed that they basically reversed No More Mutants in a way.
Possibly.
Yeah.
They actually, I think, went a step further than that.
Yeah, from what I'm seeing. But basically, they're going from there.
Yeah, exactly. I think they went a step further than No More Mutants.
Anyway, continue.
Right. Basically, and now I can sort of spoil this because Roddykat got to the end, because let's just say the Resurrection Protocol line is kind of clogged now.
Yes.
It's a bit clogged. Next up and last up is Nightwing number 87. Talk about a swerve back to DC. I had a chance to read this because it read very quickly, but it was a delight to read. It's written by Tom Taylor with art by Bruno Redondo, colors by Adriano Lucas, and letters by Wes Abbott. So in this issue, the layout of the pencils of the art is intended to be read as going from left to right, page to page to page to page. So it's almost like a continuous cartoon strip. It's not a flip book, but it's a continuous strip from left to right. And it is a wonder to see. Bruno Redondo is, I think, I don't know how long Bruno has been a comic book artist, but this is definitely a highlight of his career. And I will be making sure, and I've said this before when it comes to Nightwing, I'll be making sure to keep track of Bruno Redondo going forward, because I thought that this issue was so well laid out and so well done. And that's it for my rapid fire books. I actually never spun up the Gatling gun, the minigun. So I will belatedly ask Jesse the Body Ventura.
I ain't got time to move.
In honor of our just wrapped up rapid fire section.
Indeed. Clicks of the week. Week.
And we have our incoming clicks of the week. Do we have anything from our erstwhile co-hosts?
I don't think we do.
Yes, we do.
No, we do. Okay, yeah, I didn't see that. From Dirt, it looks like we have what is this? Buddy McGill. Buddy McGill, special agent. Okay, so I guess it's Buddy McGill. He basically says, imagine Spuds McKenzie from the 80s beer commercials as a special government agent. Not sure who this is by, but yeah, that's pretty much what he gave us. Actually, I'll look it up.
Yes, exactly. Now now we're both gonna look into this and be like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. That is funny. Let's see who's publishing this. Advent Comics. Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
It says here, let's see. Okay, I'm on previous world. He's a TS agent. He's a super party animal, and his name is Buddy McGill. He's on the trail of a ruthless terrorist and will not be stopped until justice is served. With a case of suds and some brand new duds, he will give you something you can feel.
yeah, definitely Spuds McKenzie. I wasn't even
Yes.
when I was joking about that. It's so evident from the image.
But it looks like this came out. Well, I don't know. It looks like this came out November, or at least that's what previous world said. I don't know. But regardless, that was his pick. We'll go with it.
All right, fine by me.
For myself, or for you.
Well, I've got a lot more to choose from,
That is
so
true.
I have to give it a little bit of thought.
For myself, I guess I will. It's kind of weird because because of Avengers 51 and Avengers Forever are so closely tied together, or close enough tied together to where it's like, huh. And having just kind of finished Trial of Magneto, I don't know that from what I read at Trial of Magneto, that opens up a whole lot.
Yeah, and I think that's why I'm going to go with that as my click of the week.
Yeah.
That was my thinking exactly. Is that it opens up, and it was one of those things where I had a feeling the murder of the Scarlet Witch played out just as it was revealed.
Yeah. I kind of did too, but I'm like, they wouldn't do that. Like, why would they do that unless they were trying to do something kind of crazy with
And
it?
it was that something else.
Yeah, exactly. The current time they did. So
it was that something else that Roddykat was just referring to that turns out to be the true impetus and the catalyst for the events that transpired. So there is a patsy, right, who ends up taking the fall, but how they played, how the mechanics of it, the actual the reasons behind it, it was all revealed in this issue, and it was just the implications of it, right? The implications of it are huge, and talk about like. I never want to poo-poo the importance of these miniseries. It's always hard to figure out which miniseries are going to mean, quote unquote, mean more to the main books. But I want to say I think this one is going to have some legs in terms of lasting effects or lasting ramifications on the X corner of the Marvel universe.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, exactly. Because there's some miniseries and we always say it all the time. Like, what in the world is this? What is this setting up? Like, what is this? Like, what is going on here that's going to become beneficial later on? Like, we've been saying that, especially with like the Mitro stuff, also, but and some other miniseries that we've come across. This one definitely you can see it right off the bat. At the end of this, you can definitely see what the implications are for this.
I mean, we're definitely having that Infinity War conversation between the Guardians and that small group of Avengers, about Gamora. What is this miniseries? How about where is this miniseries? Got a question.
One better.
Why? Yes. Exactly. That is our conversation. More often than not, when it comes to most of these miniseries, some of them are advertised as being, more important than others. Let's put that on the table. But this those where if you judge this to be something that would be important, you were accurate and you were correct. But if you maybe made the mistake of dismissing this, I think it might be worth going back and trying to catch up on this and maybe track down these issues as possible keys to the future.
Now, that being said, that does not make this whole thing misleading in a way. I say that because the name's called the Trial of Magneto, which we know that was an event from back in the 90s, and they just took the name. So it doesn't necessarily mean it was going to be the same thing. It didn't even have anything to do with, well, I guess, it did start off the kind of way but it ended up being something else. And the only other weak part about this issue is the fact that, like, yeah, the Patsy thing. I was like, did they actually even have to do that part? I'm like, that doesn't make any. Well, it makes sense, but it also somebody had to take the fall. I get that, but at the same time, it's like that seems unnecessary. given what ended up happening. So I guess that's kind of one way to do to deal with it. But that being said, I guess I will actually go along with that myself. Yes, my click is going to also be X-Men Trial of Magneto number 5. After sitting here talking about it.
There it is.
And with that, we can go on to the to the news section. But first, an ad read.
Our first ad read of the night is for Blue Apron. Blue Apron's meal delivery service has fresh ingredients and incredible recipes delivered weekly to your door. Skip the grocery store and make incredible meals at home with Blue Apron, always shipped free right to your home. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can get $30 off your first Blue Apron order. To place your first order with $30 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcasts free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Blue Apron link and sign up for your first order. Blue Apron through cspn.us. Remember, it's through our website at cspn.us. Do it today. And now we get into the news.
Oops, and we start off with, as I was trying to do something I probably shouldn't have done right there. Start off with the cinematic news. Boop. The Batman Zoe Kravitz shows off Catwoman's costume in clearest photo yet. So yeah, that Matt Reeves Batman. Zoe Kravitz is playing Catwoman. Here's what her costume looks like. There you go. I mean, you could do some things with that costume. I'm sure there'll be some cosplay or some other some things to be done with it. But you know, hey, looks good. Next up.
It's funny. You would think that some of these movie costumers would take into account the cosplay community when they're designing costumes to maybe promote the use of them.
Yeah.
The Black Adam suit, maybe not so much, unless you're willing to take on all spandex. So
yeah, I mean, this one seems like this is pretty much a basic. Like, yeah, you could pretty much do this costume fairly easily.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, whip aside, but you know, even then, you could find places to do that. I do know that much. But this seems a more basic, more quote unquote functional, I guess, than like say Michelle Michelle Pfeiffer's costume.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Although Michelle Pfeiffer costume was probably like super comic accurate back then, other than the stitching.
Pretty much, yeah.
So the next story is there is a synopsis out for the Black Adam movie, which promises to unleash, quote, unique justice on the DC extended universe. So yeah, we've all known, and Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, is making his damnedest effort to let everyone know that Black Adam is not the superhero you think he is. And the synopsis is, which I'm not going to read, basically says that, which is that once Black Adam is freed from being entombed for over 5,000 years, he gets ready to unleash that unique form of justice. So it's going to be an interesting experience, I think, for those of us who decide to brave the movies on July 29th, 2022, to see the Black Adam movie directed by Jaume Collet Serra.
Indeed. DC Comics developing a Legion of Superheroes TV show for HBO Max. So yeah, they're doing that, and it's going to be with Brian Michael Bendis as a part of the creative team. Bendis announced this news in his latest newsletter, where he also gave some details on how the series came into existence. As folks may know, and we may have talked about this, even though none of us was reading it, Bendis wrote the latest volume of Legion of Superheroes this past year, actually, now that I think about it. And the DC superhero team from the future will soon take part in a crossover with the Justice League in 2022, written by Bendis and illustrated by Scott Galatsky. Godlewski. Excuse me. I was about to say Mike Wazowski, but the writer also pens Justice League, as folks may know, and even though he's leaving the book in March, according to this. Let's see. Wait, after talking up HBO Max's animated adaptation of him and David Max's Dark Horse comic title cover, Benson said the streaming service came back to him and asked what other DC properties he'd think would make an interesting show. And that's what, I guess that's pretty much what brought this up. So, yeah. Doesn't say when this is going to happen, but probably sometime next year or 2023, I guess.
Next up, so this article just has a list of every movie and TV show coming to HBO Max in January. What's of chief interest to us is, as the Comic Book Chronicles, is first and foremost, at least in terms of time and in terms of chronological releases, the Harry Potter 20th anniversary return to Hogwarts, which reunites many of the stars of the Harry Potter franchise. On the 20th anniversary, oh my God, the 20th anniversary of the first film's release. Oh my goodness. Next up on January 13th will be, believe it or not, hot on the heels of The Suicide Squad is Peacemaker, starring John Cena, and you won't be able to see him. Is this going to be a blank screen? As I said, it spins out of the events of James Gunn's acclaimed film. Really acclaimed film, The Suicide Squad. So the rest of this article has a list of films and whatnot that are going to feature on HBO Max as of January 1st, 2022.
Right. Now, the Harry Potter stuff aside, there is actually more stuff in here that's germane to us. Like Two Guns was a graphic novel that was turned into a movie. That's with Denzel and Mark Wahlberg. So that was, I think that was that DC imprint? I can't remember. Regardless, and there's some Superman stuff.
I want to say that was a Vertigo book.
Vertigo. You're right. Yes. But still, it was on. Yeah, so Vertigo was under DC.
Yeah,
so,
and there's a lot of Batman stuff.
Right, some Batman stuff, some Superman stuff. So there is some actually just a little bit more out there than for that. That's Fast Six. I mean, Godzilla,
King of the Monsters, from 2019, back on HBO Max.
Right, which I thought was still on there, and some Lego stuff. But then, like I said, you can check out the list on your own. But basically, wanted to at least highlight some of the stuff that was going to be on there. That Vixen show, the animated show that was on there. Anyway, One Piece Red movie reveals new designs for the Straw Hat Pirates. I don't believe that Agent 70 is going to hit this particular anime, but the Straw Hat Pirates will get an updated look for One Piece Red. There's new costumes that were revealed during the One Piece panel during Jump Festa. We talked about it a little bit last week. Some stuff that came out of it. And you can see some drawings of said costumes of the pirates themselves. I'm not sure. Wait, when is this coming out? Let's see. One Piece Red is the 15th theatrical release of the franchise. Yep. I don't know when this is coming out, but it's probably sometime next year, likely. Next up.
All right, next up. So at Shueisha's Jump Festa 22 event on this past week, revealed that Nobuhiro Watsuki's Rurouni Kenshin manga is getting a new television anime project at Leiden Films. The event did not reveal any other details about the anime, and Plex is streaming a teaser video to announce the work. So you can find that on YouTube, following the link on the page that Roddykat is sharing. There are some interesting tidbits here about the history of the manga and the publication thereof, because of issues that the creator had. So take a look at this article, get educated. The manga has been previously adapted into a 95-episode TV anime series, an anime film, 3 original video game projects, 5 live-action films, and a stage musical. You could do this all day by the all-female musical theater troupe, Takarazuka Review. Wow. So this live action film. Wait, hold on. Yeah, so all this stuff is coming up. There's a live action film that's going to open on April 23rd, and the beginning live action film opened in Japan on June 4th. So this happened previously, but this new um, television anime project is still upcoming with no other details.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some people that's excited about this. Like I said, I liked the show when it was on. It was pretty good. Like I said, the creators misdeeds aside, the show itself was pretty good. Anywho, Naruto anime looked back with 20th anniversary art and logo. So 2022 will be this 20th anniversary of Naruto anime premiere, and Shueisha preview plans to celebrate the series' big birthday at this year's Jump Festa. At the Boruto presentation that kicked off the event, looks like they looked back at the past 22 years of this prequel series, Naruto and Shippuden, and showed some art and a recap video. So if you're interested in that, it's probably out there somewhere that you can check out, and you can see the art with Naruto and his son Boruto. Oh no, I'm sorry. You can see that's Naruto and his dad. Whose name I can't remember. But there you go. Next
up, the first teaser trailer of Mobile Suit Gundam Kukuru's Dawn's Island is here. The trailer was posted to the movie's official Twitter account alongside the tagline Gundam Rises Again. The new movie is an adaptation of the 15th episode of the original 1979 Mobile Suit Gundam anime series Kukuru's Dawn's Island. The original episode is known for its anti-war themes and numerous animation errors, the latter of which will hopefully not be recreated in the new theatrical feature. Yikes.
Twit, they might have, I'm pretty sure they probably cut out of in those movies that are on Netflix now, or at least the first movie, which kind of goes through that first arc. So, I don't know.
The film is currently scheduled for a summer 2022 premiere window in Japan. Details about the movie's international release, which is definitely going to happen a little bit later, have yet to be announced.
So there you go, Gundam fans. More Gundam. One Book of Boba Fett actor had no clue they were in the Star Wars series. And I put this article in here because I did not know this person was even in this show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Actor Jennifer Beals, some might know from Dirty Dancing, is set to appear in.
No.
Wait.
The other dancing movie.
What? Oh, wait. Flashdance? Oh, Flashdance. Yes. You're right. Now I need to go check. But yeah, I think you're right. Anyway, Jennifer Beals is going to be in the Disney Plus show Book of Boba Fett, and that's actually next week.
Yes.
She's playing a Twilight
next week.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we just got away from Hawkeye, and now we're getting some Star Wars stuff. This is great, lovely. And I'm not even saying that facetiously, but because I'm actually kind of curious about what the show's what's going to happen in the show. In an interview with Variety, Beals explains, I mean, I knew about the character, but this is how good they are at the Lockdown of Secrets. Even when I first stepped into the set, I didn't realize I was in the Book of Boba Fett. I just knew that I was going to be a part of this story. So, and she goes on to like hint a few details about what her possibility of her character, possibilities that her character has. But that's about it. We'll find out when we see it. And like I said, December 29th, that's when this show happens. Next.
Yeah, I can confirm that Jennifer Beals is in Flashdance.
It was Flashdance. Okay, yeah.
That's why I was like, I looked it up just to confirm my thoughts.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I think you're thinking of Jennifer Grey.
Yeah, because I have done that before, like confused the two, and I know better because I've seen both movies in in different contexts, So, but yes, Jennifer Beals of Flashdance fame. There you go.
There it is. All right. Next up, Mark Hamill celebrated the 1-year anniversary of his grand return to the role of Luke Skywalker in the season 2 finale of the Disney Plus Star Wars series, The Mandalorian. Quote, happy anniversary to the return of Luke on The Mandalorian. Quote, Hamill tweeted in response to a fan Similarly, celebrating the occasion, he says, "I'd like to thank my double Max Lloyd Jones, who did a great job despite being clearly too handsome for the part." Haha.
Missed opportunity. They should have used Sebastian Stan.
Yes.
But yeah, that's I can't believe it's been a year since that happened. That's kind of it's one thing.
We've made this joke over and over again during these pandemic times. Our sense of time, it has completely gone to crap.
This is true. And there's that featurette. Oh yeah, and there's that featurette that I meant to put into the show notes, which you guys will see when you see the show notes. Anyway, Guardians of the Galaxy's James Gunn releases 2021 Awesome Mix. So yeah, as he's done within the last couple of movies, James Gunn took to social media with a playlist of his most listened to tunes of the year. The smash success of the original Guardians soundtrack made Gunn something of a pop music expert. I don't know who said that, but hey, there's been some good music in those movies, so can't really, Peter's Awesome Mix is a mix of 70s and 80s staples gifted to him by his we already know what that is in the parlance of Guardians films. But basically, you can go to this article and find the link to this year's awesome link. And I got awesome mix, and there is, or you can just scroll down and see what was on the thing on the list. I know a lot of his music is older than a lot of you folks probably listening and or watching.
Right.
And I think let's see. I thought there was so I can't remember if we knew this already, but just to iterate, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is due to hit theaters May 5th of 2023. And I could have sworn that I saw an article said that was with this, but it's not. So anyway, next up,
Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige. God, why do we have to say that part? Just say Kevin Feige said.
We don't. They just do, but they put it at the beginning of every freaking article with him. And it's ridiculous.
Kevin Feige says there are ideas for Eros/Star Fox, played by Harry Styles in the Marvel Cinematic Universe after his surprise spoiler cameo in Eternals.
Yeah, in a red carpet. Hopefully this isn't a spoiler for anybody at this point.
Right. In a red carpet interview for No Way Home, Feige was asked about Styles' appearance, and Feige explained there are a lot of Star Fox fans at Marvel Studios, and, quote, "So as the MCU continues into the cosmic arena, there are ideas." Okay.
It was a curious addition. We kind of figured it would happen, but it was a curious addition. I'm not going to go into this because I've not seen this movie, but apparently Spider-Man No Way Home's end credits revives a villain more powerful than Thanos. Next. I have a suspect. I think I might know who it is, but I don't. So we're not.
It's fine. All right. Last but not least in the cinematic news, John Wick 4 announced a delayed release this past week with a stylish video. So I actually got the text. All right. I did subscribe to the text from John Wick accounts, and I got a copy of the stylish video link in my text. And I had to look at it. I was like, is this spam? And then I realized, oh, no, this is the John Wick account. Right. So John Wick Chapter 4 will no longer see a 2022 release date. The highly anticipated entry has been delayed once again to early 2023. So franchise owner Lionsgate made the announcement with a stylish video in true John Wick fashion. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't. Did you watch it?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
All I needed was the date, and they said that they're delaying until March 24th, 2023. So that's still a while away.
Right. So yeah, we shall see. I might check it out though. But yes, now we go into the comic book news. Haha, good timing. Wonder Woman's. Oh, I will say before we get into this that solicitations for March 2022 have come out, and some of this news is coming from there. First off, Wonder Woman's world changes and DC's Black Label heats up, and March 2022 solicitations. So I probably didn't have to say that first part, but I did. Deal with it. So yeah, there's some Black Label stuff, some DC Black Label stuff. I think we kind of talked about this, but um, there's a Wonder Woman event, the Amazon's event that is coming, and yeah, this week's I forgot about this week's Nubia and the Amazons, which I didn't get a chance to read. Probably has some tie into that also, because I know the first couple of issues did. Apparently, the crime syndicate is going to try to murder Amanda Waller. There's going to be some Deathstroke, Dahlia al Ghul stuff, and there's a whole bunch of things going on. But the solicitations will be in the show notes, and you can check them out if you are into that kind of stuff. Next up.
Next up, the article that Roddykat is showing everyone is a preview presented by CBR of AWA Studios' The Crimson Cage #1 by John Lees and Alex Cormack. This book is going to be released, it has been released already. It says December 8th of 2021, so be on the lookout there.
Yeah, I think I pulled this for our wrestling inclined folks who may or may not have and horror, I guess, as this thing looks like, who are out there.
Yeah.
Naruto novels to be adapted into manga. So yes, there's going to be a manga adaptation for two of Naruto's light novels. The official Twitter account for Naruto announced that two new manga for Sasuke, Retsuden, the Uchiha Descendants, and the Heavenly Stardust, and Konoha, Konoha, I can't remember how to pronounce that name, excuse me, Shinden, Stream Ninja Scrolls would both release in 2022 for Shueisha's online magazine's Jump, Shonen Jump Plus. There were two illustrators brought in for the adaptation who have previously worked for, who has previously illustrated for Psychopaths and some other stuff. Look out for that. 2022. Next
up, so Hot Toys has put out, or is going to put out, a high-end action figure of Yelena Belova as she's depicted in the Black Widow movie, which is a shame because I've actually come to really appreciate how she is portrayed in the Hawkeye series. So it's a pretty, but this is still a very good likeness of Florence Pugh by Hot Toys, and of course her vest has lots and lots of pockets.
It's a cool vest, right?
Yes, pre-orders are for $270. Hot Toys are not cheap and should ship about a year from now.
I'm not going to go through the full thing, but there's some flipping through of what it looks like. Yeah, Hot Toys does very detailed stuff, hence the price.
Mm-hmm.
Which reminds me of this other. I got a note from Big Bad Toy Stores about a Black Panther. I don't know if you saw that. A Black Panther figure that is coming out. It's like $100.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I want it, but that's a lot.
Who's it from?
Huh?
Who's it from? Is it Hot Toys?
Actually, I'm not sure. I didn't. That part I didn't see because I saw it in my email. Because you know how Hot Toys. I mean, Big Bad Toy Store will send you.
Oh, right.
Pre-order stuff. Yeah, but I didn't catch that part. Next up, though, while you.
I probably did it. Yeah, I probably just deleted it because I didn't want to be tempted.
Yeah, I was 2 seconds from doing the exact same thing, but I didn't yet. So I was like, I'm still kind of Klarna. But anyway, Prestige Punisher series from Aaron and Azaceta promises. Excuse me, folks. Promises to reveal Frank Castle's inescapable future. So basically, the Punisher is getting a 13-issue Prestige Punisher series from Marvel. It's going to be written by Jason Aaron, illustrated by Jesus Sayas and Paul Azaceta. It's going to debut in March, and it's going to explore Frank Castle's past, present, and future, with each artist contributing to different stages of the Punisher's life. And I believe this may be where we're going to see a new Punisher logo. Yep. So if you look down into the preview stuff, they're going to get rid of the old skull and give him a new one, basically. From what
Probably,
I've seen.
yeah, probably temporarily for the series, because I think the premise of the series is that all of a sudden Frank Castle's martial arts game gets gets up by like exponentially.
Right, because as we see from these preview photos, looks like there's definitely some ninjas. I don't know if that's actually the hand.
Right. I think the concept, I read up on this. I think the concept is that he becomes like a pawn of the beast, the head of the hand,
Okay.
and you can't do that unless you are like a super duper martial artist, like Elektra and Daredevil level and beyond.
Right.
So, while Frank is definitely no chump when it comes to martial arts, that's never been his forte. So this is an evolution. And Aaron, you have to give Aaron credit because he's got some connection to the Punisher character. He's worked on the Punisher before.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know 100% if this is just a response to the whole appropriation of the Punisher skull logo, which is obviously iconic, but has come to be appropriated by other people to represent things that are not affiliated with the character. So like you wonder if this is a response to that or if it's just really part of a story. So it's not magic power Punisher. I remember that.
It's not cosmic either. So
and it's not Frankencastle.
Yes.
So
thank goodness for that. So anyway, yeah, so that's next March. I'm slightly curious about it, but at the same time, I'm not the biggest Punisher fan, so in the first place, but we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I fluctuate. I definitely was a big Punisher fan in the 80s and 90s just because I thought it was cool. I was an 80s kid, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, I just thought it was, just cool. And just to see where it's gone, we'll see where it goes. All right, next up. Marvel just introduced a kaiju-sized symbiote and sicked it on the Avengers. This is in this week's book of Tech on Avengers, the penultimate issue.
Mm-hmm. Which neither one of us read, so it's probably good that I put this in here.
Right. It's a Tech on. It's a what's posted here is a preview of Tech on Avengers number 5.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually a version of the symbiote supervillain Scream, not Venom.
Right.
And that is the character that is at the heart of this particular issue. One of the antagonists, at least in this issue of Avengers Tech on Avengers.
Yeah. Yeah, and that character kind of came in at the end of the last issue. So, Marvel's Eternals and Avengers are going to war with each other. So this is I guess this is definitely coming out of what's currently going on in the Eternals book.
Yeah, it's been teased.
Yes, exactly. It's written by Kieran Gillen and illustrated by Isak Ribic. Eternals 10 is slated to hit comic shops this March. According to Marvel, the issue sees the Eternals risk an all-out war with the Avengers, and a battle between the two superhero teams seems inevitable. Seeing as how the Eternals plan on entering Avengers Mountain uninvited, though their exact motivations for doing so are unclear. But yeah, if you've been keeping up with the Eternals, like I think we kind of sort of have, you've seen this tease already. So, and it's going to happen in March. Next up.
All right. This is from the Marvel Solicits. March 2022 sees the release of X-Force Annual Number 1, written by Nadia Shamas, with art by Rafael Pimentel. And this article links to a preview of this issue where it looks like something major, as I said, the major Dark Ops X storyline. So they've teased several X storylines that are going to be launching in the early part of 2022, and this being one of them.
Yeah, I guess for the last couple of weeks, we've been seeing the experts kind of depart from the last arc of their stuff, and some ending to, as we said, to be
right, to start off new arcs,
exactly.
new story. namely Excalibur, Sword, anything else? Probably Marauders too. Is probably going to be relaunched also.
Marauders is coming back though. Sword might not be Sword coming back, but we know Marauders is. In fact, there might be something in here about that. If not, we talked about it last week, maybe. Anyway, AEW's Nyla Rose reveals new Marvel X-Men project. So for those who read the last issue of X-Men Trial of Magneto, know that that some things happened. We're not, we won't go into what exactly happened, but basically coming out of that, we know that a early killed mutant comes back into the fray, and I know his brother's going to be very happy about that. But apparently, Giant Size X-Men Thunderbolt #1 will be written by Nyla Rose, who will be making her Marvel Comics writing debut, and Steve Orlando, and it will be illustrated by artist David Cutler. The project will deal with Thunderbird's return and the very different world he steps into, and it's set to hit next April. So obviously there will be John Proudstar coming back to a world very different from the one he left it from it. Well, different and not so different, I guess you could say. Next up, I don't know who Nyla Rose is also. I mean, wrestler, I get that part, but sure. Next up, anyway.
Rose became the first openly transgender wrestler in history to sign with a major American promotion when signing with AEW.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm looking to see why. I'm going to presume that Rose is. Oh, yes. She is Native and African American, with her Native side being of Oneida heritage. Trying to figure out why Rose would be writing Thunderbolt.
Yeah, I kind of figured that part was the case because they've been kind of doing that. Lamar's been kind of doing that lately. Is getting.
I just had to double check though. So
I know. No, that's good you did because I have no idea who this person was in the first place.
Same. Okay. All right. What am I up to? All right. Marvel announces an Elektra story. Really? From TMNT's Kevin Eastman. We know that Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird based the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles book off of the Frank Miller Daredevil stuff. And it's interesting to see that, Eastman is, it has been confirmed that he's going to get to play in the Daredevil sandbox. So in the solicitations for March 2022, in Elektra Black, White, and Blood, Eastman is going to contribute an Elektra story. Okay. All right, so this is the 4th issue of the series, and it's going to feature a story written and drawn by Kevin Eastman. Okay.
Right. It's curious they've been doing this because I think they did one for Deadpool and Wolverine. Have they not? This is Black, White, and Blood books.
Yes.
I don't know if they're connected with each other, but I assume that it's definitely a thing. So.
Well, it's a thing with these bloody characters. Ha ha ha.
Yeah. Right. So. Next up, though, DC Comics icon Jim Lee celebrates Ultraman with new sketch. So yeah, Jim Lee took to his Twitter account to share one of his take on one of the biggest superheroes of Japan, Ultraman, who continues to receive new projects in both of the world of anime and live action, and also comic books, which this article did not mention because Marvel's got the Ultraman license. And you could see, apparently, he's been doing other stuff like Dragon Ball's Goku, One Punch Man, Saitama, My Hero Academia's All Might, and Berserk's Guts, which I missed those. I'm gonna have to go check his Twitter account and check those out. But yeah, if you're watching the video version of this program, you can see Jim Lee's take on Ultraman, which, as you would expect from Jim Lee, looked great. Says captions here, one of my favorite shows growing up. Second attempt at capturing the thrill of Ultraman. Specium Ray Ultra Blast. Hashtags. So cool. Next up.
So in the March solicits, we find out that is when we're going to get the conclusion of the Beyond storyline in Spider-Man, in Amazing Spider-Man. And we're going to get Peter Parker looking to take back the mantle from Ben Reilly. And what Marvel is saying is that what Marvel says is that you, quote, may surprise yourself with who you're rooting for, unquote. Now I won't be surprised.
I will definitely not be.
I know who I'm rooting for, so come on, Marvel. Let's not besmirch the original Spider-Man anymore, okay? Please.
So this basically denotes that okay, Peter's gonna do some fuck shit when he gets out of the hospital. That's what it makes it sound like. And I'm sitting here like, I hope that's not the case.
More like, you know what it is? More like they're gonna try to make Ben Riley as sympathetic as possible.
Sure.
And they want us to root for him to try to, find his own life and find, just kind of reform himself and his character image. That's what I think is going to happen.
Possibly.
So that's my suspicion.
Here's my idea: scrap them both, give to Miles. Done. Don't scrap. I mean, don't kill off Pete. I'm just saying, let Peter do his thing. But just saying, make Miles the main Spider-Man. Get rid of Ben. Done.
That's funny. That's funny. I mean, eventually that's going to happen in the MCU. Whether or not it happens in the comics, it remains to be seen.
Yeah.
So.
Hulk and Thor are going to war and Marvel crossover event. Marvel Comics is celebrating the 60th anniversary of Hulk and Thor with a new crossover event. Donny Cates is currently writing the Adventures of the Jade Giants and God of Thor. That's right, he is still doing Thor in their respective solo comics. But in April, they will collide in Hulk versus Thor: Banner of War. Ha 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 ha. A 5-part crossover beginning in Hulk versus Thor: Banner of War Alpha number 1. From there, the story will continue in Hulk and Thor's solo titles, running throughout May and June. Artist Martin Coccolo will illustrate each chapter with covers from the legendary artist Gary Frank. The publisher promises the crossover will have a shocking impact on both Hulk and Thor's futures going forward. Thoughts?
I'm glad that it's not. What's his name? On art.
Oh. Your fave?
Yeah. Ryan Otley. Glad
oh, okay. No, I was thinking of somebody else. Okay.
No. Oh, Greg Land. Oh, God. Sweet holy. Oh, God. Sweet holy baby. Like in honor of Christmas around the corner. Sweet holy baby Jesus. Thank God it's not Greg Land.
Indeed.
But yeah, it's funny that you bring up that Cates is writing both books.
Yeah, right. Because I knew because we just talked about Hulk last week, and I totally forgot he was writing Thor, which I don't think I've read any of. Now that I think about. So
right. And shout out to our co-host Tim Dog98, who wrote this article that Roddykat told about Hulk and Thor.
Mm-hmm. Next up, though.
Right. Next up, celebrate the wily women of Marvel this March. So the women of Marvel will return for another star-studded spotlight of some of Marvel's greatest heroes. So this March, Women of Marvel number 1 will continue the tradition of highlighting Marvel's female heroes in an all-new collection of tales crafted by a lineup of incredible female creators. Okay. So, there's some interesting stories that are detailed here. So if you're into this particular celebration of women at Marvel, make sure to pick this up.
Indeed. The extra-large Buffy the Vampire Slayer 25th anniversary special arrives in March. All Star creators will celebrate the Buffy the Vampire Slayer 25th anniversary, and there will be featured brand new stories and a shocking prologue to a new Buffyverse series. And that's coming from Boom Studios, and it'll be a special oversized one-shot issue, and that will be March 2022. Next up,
Stranger Things. Kamchatka tells brand new horror story from Dark Horse Comics. The Screen Rant has an exclusive announcement and a special preview for Stranger Things Kamchatka, the newest exciting miniseries from Dark Horse. The shocking chapter of the Stranger Things universe will be set in Mother Russia and involves a mystery that can only be solved by the children of a scientist who has strangely disappeared. Okay. This edition of Stranger Things universe is the latest comic book-based expansion of the Netflix franchise.
Have you ever eaten reindeer?
Huh. It's chewy. It's chewy.
Exactly. Last but not least, in news that slightly surprised me, but I shouldn't be surprised at this point. Dark Horse Comics and all assets have been sold to Embracer Group. Because if you've been around the video game landscape, you know that Embracer Group has been buying up a lot of properties, and now they're going into comic books apparently. As it says here, Embracer is a Swedish video game holding company and the parent of Asmodee, THQ Nordic, Gearbox, Deca Games, Koch Media, Saber Interactive, and more. The price Embracer is paying for Dark Horse wasn't disclosed, but Dark Horse founder and CEO Mike Richardson will remain on board to manage the company. Which I can't remember. I feel like they've been trying to look for people to buy them for a good minute. I'm not looking.
I think so.
Yeah. So the fact that this Embracer Group, who, as I said, have been buying up a lot of video game development properties, you would think is a weird mix, but not really. So Embracer will own us all at some point. They'll be the next Amazon for all we know.
Oh, really?
Nah, I don't know. I mean, that's been a joke for the last year or so. Because like I said, all those companies that I just named, and there's more that they've been just buying up in the video game front. Like, how long will it be before they start going in other avenues? And this is apparently them doing that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I'm going to say is I know that at Matt Wang 97 had some thoughts on this, and he wanted to talk about this. Unfortunately, I'm a little tied up with the holiday stuff. But maybe after the holidays, we'll have a chance to chat about it.
Oh yeah, yes, I would love to hear his thoughts on this. So yeah, well, hopefully we will get that done in some kind of way, shape, or form. We haven't had Matt on the show for a minute, so that'll be good. That being said, though,
let's say what he has to share may not be for public consumption, but
got it.
At the end of the day, it would be a little bit of insight into some of the happenings.
Right. I mean, you could probably have a corporate version, a quote unquote corporate version for the show if he's on the show, and then tell us the dirt later if there is any dirt. I don't know what he's going to say, but but regardless, this is interesting that has happened. So because like I said, it's curious in a lot of reasons. Like I feel like Embracer is going to be buying up a whole lot of properties, and then Tencent buys them. Because Tencent also has been in a buying game for this in this last year or two or 10.
Got it.
So, but anyway, we have come to the end of another episode of this here Comic Book Chronicles. Before we get to the end, let me do a quick toy corner, which I'm springing up on. It's not necessarily a toy, but close enough. I may have talked about this. Let me get my shot. Because I'm not giving away my shot. All right, folks. You may or may not be able to see the crap. Yeah, you probably won't be able to see this. There we go. So it's a book. Friday Foster, the Sunday strips. If you did not know, Friday Foster is a black exploitation movie from the 70s, starring Pam Grier. They did apparently they did newspaper strips in the Sunday papers back then, or at some point. Yeah, I got my copy of it right here. So along with my I think I got the Spider-Man newspaper strip somewhere around here, probably back there somewhere. I have to find it. But yeah, this is a book of all of the Sunday comic strips for Friday Foster. As a fan of blaxploitation movies, in a sense, this was something I was like, I had to have this. So there you go. That's pretty much that, though. So, that new book smell. I love that new book smell. And unfortunately, I can't show it because I don't want to turn off my my virtual background because it's a holy hell mess back here. One day, folks. One day.
Oh no.
Yeah, one day this office will be pristine, and I will not need a virtual background anymore. But that being said, we will go into our last ad read of the night.
Our last ad read of the night, and you know what it is when we're trying to log off. It's been a long night. Keep our podcast free by shopping at Amazon. Visit cspn.us and click the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down and click on the Amazon link to shop. Purchase items from Amazon as you normally would, whether it's books, music, electronics, jewelry, apparel, Marvel Legends, or just Christmas presents that are going to be late because you are late at this point. For every purchase made on Amazon through our link, Amazon sends the CSPN a payment. Uh-oh, I need to get my sound effects up. That helps us keep the Comic Book Chronicles podcast free for our listeners at no extra cost to you. Amazon.com through CSPN.us. Remember, it's through CSPN.us. Do it today.
And folks, we'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming out. As we are ending this program, it is now Christmas Eve. So you should get out there and, I don't know, watch Spider-Man, watch Matrix Resurrections, which we did not get to talk about this week because neither one of us watched it.
No,
you watched it. Sorry, Agent 70 watched it. I did not. So we might kind of touch up on that next week. We'll see.
Whoa.
What's up?
So I said, whoa.
But since it is Christmas Eve, the one thing you should do, or the two things you should do, is definitely watch Across Charlie Brown Christmas Special and the like. I think the Grinch probably came on, but definitely the greatest Christmas movie ever, Die Hard.
Yes. Yes.
I joke with somebody about that all the time. They're like, "Would you stop, please?" I'm like, "No, I will never."
Come out to folks, we'll get together, have a few laughs. Of course.
Exactly. I mean,
in rotation for me tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. You could also,
Later.
I mean, yeah, Batman '89. You could probably, also, throw that into the mix.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but that's not. I don't think it was any. I mean, there's that one part where they talk about the Christmas song. I mean, where he's singing a Christmas song. But hey, you can work the angles the way you can. Regardless, we will be back next week. And I have been Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can find and you can also find me at CB Caps on Instagram. Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. PCN_dirt on Twitter, Pop Culture Net on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com, and all those umbrella sites therein. And of course, the Osiris-ish Tim DOGG98 on Twitter. You can also find him at CB Cron on Twitter, which is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account. You can find him at The Click Nation on Twitter. That's the KLIQNATION, all one word. You can also find him at comicbook.com, where he's over there writing his face off. You can find this here podcast on the Coastal of the Podcast Network, that's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find us on your podcast place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal of the Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. You can find us here every Thursday night, most Thursday nights, except for when Movie Protocol is happening. Thursday nights, 9:30-ish p.m. We had a little snag earlier tonight, so that's why we were a little late, but that's never really stopped us before. But you can find us recording live on the YouTube channel of The Click Nation. That's youtube.com/TheClickNation and twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles. And again, we'll be back next week. It'll be the day before the day before New Year's Eve, and most likely, like I said, at the very least, Matrix will be talked about. Hopefully, I'll get to see Spider-Man before then. We shall see. But regardless,
Book of Boba well.
Huh?
Book of Boba Fett as well.
Yes, Book of Boba Fett. That's absolutely. I feel like there's something else I'm missing, but I'm not sure what it is at this point. Regardless, next week, last show of the year. We will not be talking about year-end deliberations, but we will probably start getting those off the ground, hopefully, before the show after that. But that being the case, this has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Have a Merry Christmas. Love one another. Be safe out there. Peace.
Peace. One Merry Christmas to all. As Roddykat said, please be safe. It's time to start masking up for real, indoors, wherever you are. You may want to invest in some KN95s or N95s or I forget what the Korean version is, but at the end of the day, the more hardier masks I think will serve you well, or layering up with the surgical and cloth masks, because it's important to stay safe as these pandemic numbers get a little bit harder to deal with, and testing still isn't what it needs to be. But at the end of the day, testing only is one aspect of keeping everybody safe and healthy. So with that, we leave you.
My time is up. Peace out, your Brooklyn.
Peace.